excited actually to see a number of men here joining us today. But we want to allow alumni to connect, support, and engage with one another. We have events on and online communities. We have active pages on both Facebook and LinkedIn. We foster strong personal and professional connections, promoting personal and professional growth and celebrating achievements and successes while fostering future generations and providing opportunities for women to share ideas and inspire one another. If you haven't found us on LinkedIn or Facebook, please do join us. There's always something going on. We post about our events, people post jobs. It's a good way to keep in touch with one another. We often enjoy our opportunities to collaborate with on-campus groups, other groups such as the Women's Impact Network, University Advancement, and the Alumni Association, and just connecting and networking with women of the WPI community and our partners who advocate for women on campus and off. So as in past years, we're currently planning for our winter fireside chat. So keep an eye on your email in the coming months for this invitation. In the meantime, please check out this year-long series to celebrate the Global School at WPI. Monthly events focus on regional and grand challenges themes within the context of ongoing collaborations with partners throughout the globe. The series includes plenary talks by leading luminaries. The next upcoming event is November 6th, and it highlights Africa. So with all that kind of homework out of the way, let's talk about why we're here today. It's my pleasure to welcome fellow alumna, committee member, and WPI trustee, Joyce Klein, class of 1987, who will kick off our program.
Thank you so much, Allison. It's my sincere pleasure to be with all of you tonight. As Allison said, I'm a class of 1987. I'm a member of the Women of WPI Steering Committee, and I'm also on the Board of Trustees. And I have to say, just seeing the list of where people are from, over the years that we've held the fall conference, our reach has pretty much been New England, New York, maybe as far as New Jersey, Pennsylvania, but to have people on this call from as far away as Sydney and as near as Boston is just tremendous. And we're so excited that all of you can join us today. And I have to say, I think you're really going to like the keynote that we have here for this year's conference. One of the hallmarks of every conference is a keynote speaker. And so this year, our presenter for the event is Donna Peters, and it's my sincere pleasure to give you a bit of an overview of Donna. Donna is the founder of the Me Suite and the host of the Me Suite podcast. And I'll encourage all of you to sign up for this podcast. It's really, really great. And as you go through today's session, I think you'll appreciate what Donna has done in the interviews and the experiences that she brings forward in the podcast. Donna is an executive life coach, speaker, and a workshop leader with over 20 years advising senior executives and the next generation of leaders at the world's most admired companies. Donna has acted professionally on stage and film and done stand-up for 10 years before pursuing a career at the Cornell Johnson School, where she received her MBA. And then from there, she became a senior partner and practice leader at Accenture. And that's where I met Donna. I had the pleasure of filling in for Donna on the Cornell MBA recruiting team. And I have to tell you, big shoes to fill. Donna is very, very well liked. And in addition to that, just has an amazing way of connecting with people and working to get at the root of an issue. For those of you that have taken the Strength Finder, Donna is a maximizer, a person known for sorting through all the clutter and connecting dots and getting things done. And so Donna is really a career-oriented and life-minded person. She helps people balance aspirations with practicality to help us lead our lives with the 3 Ps: purpose, planning, and power. What you'll witness today is, tonight, is Donna is a leader who's committed to your success. And I think that's one of the most important hallmarks of what you'll walk away from tonight's session with. And I just want to say my sincere pleasure to introduce you to our keynote, Donna Peters. So Donna, over to you.
Thank you very much, Joyce. Joyce mentioned that we had a chance to work together, and I've spent the last several years walking around the universe trying to find a reason to intersect with Joyce again. So I was thrilled when she gave me this opportunity to join all of you tonight. I want to check in first. How is my volume and can you see my video? Can somebody just pipe in and let me know I'm okay? Perfect. Thank you very much. So I first want to say there's an awful lot of things that you could have been doing with your time and you chose to spend it here, and congratulations on investing in yourself, because that's what it really does take to carve this time out to focus on the things that can make you take more control of your future. We're going to talk today about a methodology, an approach, a mindset that helps you take control and shape the future that you want to shape. And as you know, it is called Building Your Personal Board of Directors. My commitment to you this evening, morning, afternoon, wherever you are in the world, my commitment to you is that you will leave with practical actions that you can start doing differently on Monday to incorporate this into the way you're shaping your future. So I'm excited. I'll take the next slide, please. So a quick overview. After this call, you're going to have a couple of resources available at your fingertips. This is being recorded, and so this will be available to you after the call, of course. And there's a couple of other things that'll also be available to you that are part of the Me Suite, as Joyce introduced so kindly. I will start in your top right section of the slide under number 1. The Me Suite is the name of my business, but it's also a podcast series. It's top trending in North America right now, a top trending business podcast, a career podcast, and it's free. And I highlight here on the slide, there are 2 season 1 episodes, number 1 and number 24, that are directly relevant to the Building Your Personal Board of Directors topics. So go straight there for more immersion into building a personal board of directors. Then circling around clockwise to number 2, also at the mesuite.com website is a career blog, one of which is specifically focused on building a personal board of directors, along with a lot of other topics. And then I do a lot of faculty and workshops and one-on-one career coaching. So just an introduction of some resources that will be available to you, many of them free and in your own time after this call. Next slide, please. So I think that it's always really important to ground ourselves in vocabulary. Knowing a 3-letter acronym or a phrase doesn't make you smart, but not knowing it can make you feel a little silly and confused. So let's ground ourselves in some very important words that you may have already been asking yourself. Board of directors, how is that different from sponsors, mentors, and coaches? Here is a really quick brush at the different ways we use these topics, and hopefully this will make sense for our further conversation specifically on board of directors, or BOD. So a sponsor is typically someone at your current place of work that is influencing your ability to get particular assignments or particular promotions. And similarly, a mentor is most often somebody specific within your area of work that is giving you advice over a period of time in a very similar field where you're already working. A board of directors, in contrast, first of all, is a group. We'll talk about how many in a moment. And they have been brought on board by you with your best interests in mind, protecting your interests, to help you focus on very specific life goals that you have articulated. So board of directors are really put together by you, for you, in service of you. And then coaches are on the paid side, and they tend to be neuroscience experts who are paid to help you help yourself. So that's the way I'm using different vocabulary words today, and hopefully that ground setting is helpful and maybe consistent with the work experiences that you've already had. Next slide, please. So I want to understand who is out there in this WPI universe today. We're going to launch a poll in just a moment that is basically going to ask which of these stages in understanding board of directors as a concept best represents your experience, from the concept's completely new to me, to I've heard of it, to I actually already have a personal board of directors, Donna, and I could be teaching this session right now if you'd get out of the way. And the fourth one is I'm actually a member of someone else's personal board of directors. So we'll launch the poll here and give you just a moment to help us understand who you are and what your baseline is. So here you can just cast your vote. It's new to me, or I've heard of it, I have one, and I am on someone else's. Let's see what the results come back like. All right, fantastic. Okay, so women of WPI, you have chosen a perfect topic because there clearly is a need out there to dive deeper into what is a personal board of directors and why should I have one? All righty, well, thank you. This is extremely helpful for me, and thank you. I'm even more energized. So next slide, please. All righty. So I'm going to start with the highest level definition here. A personal board of directors, or a BOD, is what most companies you could ever think of today. Think of a couple of companies in your mind right now, companies you do business with, companies that are famous, basically any company, whether public, private, not-for-profit, that you can come up with in your mind right now has a board of directors. Companies have them, and so should you. What you may not have realized about a corporate board, a board of a public company, for example, like an AT&T or I live in Atlanta, so like a Delta Airlines or a UPS, the CEO reports to the board of directors in large publicly held companies like that. And even at smaller companies and smaller not-for-profits, et cetera, the CEO or the head of the president is accountable to the board. And the board there is helping that company marshal their core values. It's helping them keep the day-to-day operations running smoothly, and it's helping that organization stay fresh and relevant for the future that it wants to have. You know, what is the vision? Where do they want to be in 5 years? All of those things are no different from what we should be doing in our own personal lives. Companies have boards of directors, and so should you. Think about it in the simplest way as a diverse group of advisors that you appoint to help you meet your specific life goals. And it's about 3 to 5 people. We'll talk more about that in a moment, but the main words around this definition I really want you to take away is what's underlined here. It's a diverse group of advisors that you appoint to help you meet your specific goals. And wrapped up in there's a lot of assumptions about getting diversity of thought, people signing up, agreeing to be an advisor with your best interests in mind, and it's assuming that you have goals. All right, next slide. So what I loved about the chat at the beginning when we were all gathering here was you were telling your location, and some of you had your year of graduation in there. And I saw people more fresh out of school, 1 or 2 years. I think I saw somebody who graduated in 1975. The age range on this call and where you are in your personal and professional journey is very diverse on just this one call alone. And so what I thought would be really interesting is to ground us in the fact that it doesn't matter where you are in that personal and professional journey. The concept of a personal board of directors is relevant for any life moment that matters to you. So here's an example. I have taken a cluster of age ranges, and if you will give me a little bit of a license to make some generalizations about life stages. Maybe when you're more new out of school on the left-hand side, you're more focused on what are my interests and how do I want to work in my interests. Then maybe as you're aging and you're growing differently in your career and in your personal life commitments, you might be orienting more around balancing your work and life priorities. Maybe when you're getting a little bit more advanced in age and in your career and with your family, you're thinking a little bit more about your why and your purpose. And then the 55 plus area, I love to call getting my new tires. It's my definition of what it means to retire. Yeah, thank you. It's my definition of what it means to retire, which is not retire like go to sleep, but retire, get new tires at that can be very motivating and energetic stage in your life. So I'm hoping that no matter where you are on this spectrum, you're taking away the message that the concept of a personal board of directors is relevant to you if you have goals. Next slide, please. So what are we talking about? Personal board of directors, it's an acronym, BOD. And I think the simplest way to break it down is to remember, well, what does the B mean? What does the O mean? What does the D mean? And what all of the people on your board of directors will have in common, because remember, you appoint them and they agree to come on board. The one main common denominator, sorry, I can't talk. The one main common denominator that they all have is you are bringing people on who have your best interests in mind, because they're all working with your best interests in mind. The B are buddies. These might be friends for life that you met in kindergarten. They might be friends that you met at WPI. They are best friends from high school. These are buddies who are there for you when you're feeling a little down and defeated, and they're there to cheer you up and say, don't give up, you got this. But they're also the friend who knows you well enough to know if you're stepping outside of the bounds of your core values, and maybe you just need to hear that your baby's ugly and snap back into shape. So that's the B. Those are the buddies, the type of a person that you would put on the board. One is a buddy category. The second category is the O, and I call these outsiders. These are people who are maybe out at a company or in a field or in a line of work that you're interested in moving to, but you need to learn more about it. So an example, maybe I got out of WPI and I started working at a bank, but I want to transition into healthcare. And so you might bring an outsider onto your personal board of directors who works in the healthcare space, and maybe over a 3 to 6 month period, they're helping you get more familiar with what are the dynamics of that industry and how do the skills that I was applying over here in my other job might be relevant for me finding a career in healthcare. They are outsiders who are at a place you're interested in exploring or being, and you bring them in to learn more from them, and they tell you what you need to learn. And then the D of BOD is what I call diagnosers. These are people who you might be sharing a challenge with, or an opportunity or a curiosity that you have, and you're not quite sure if you should turn left or right. You're not really sure if you should go back to school and get a graduate degree, for example. And they're diagnosing the challenge that you're having, and they're actually making a recommendation of, if I were in your shoes, I would recommend you blank based on my experience and what I'm hearing. So think of those 3 to 5 people that I mentioned that would be on your personal board of directors as balancing this category of buddies, outsiders, and diagnosers. Next slide, please. So I mentioned before, I made a commitment that we were going to get practical about things that you could start doing on Monday. So then it's, how do we get started? And there are 6 elements here, and I'm going to do a poll in a moment that will ask you, which of these are you more interested in diving into in the time that we have together today? So we can prioritize the time and spend it where you're going to find it the most valuable. But let me go through the 6 first. And again, these materials are going to be available for you after the call. How do you get started putting together your personal board of directors? Number 1, you have to define the goal or goals that you want to be working on and a time frame around them. Let me give you an example. If you knew that you were right now exploring maybe a job change, and you thought maybe in 2021 when things settle down with COVID potentially, you might have a goal around refreshing your LinkedIn profile so that it signals more what you're interested in doing. You might need to be updating your resume. You might need to be practicing that interviewing muscle because you haven't interviewed for a while. That might be a goal, which is to get back in the job market within a time frame about the next 3 to 6 months. And you might decide to assemble a board of directors around that goal and time frame to achieve your objective. So then you would go to number 2 and say, well, wait a minute, I've got to go identify the top 3 to 5 people that can help with that goal. And remember, they'll balance the buddy, the outsider, and the diagnoser categories. And then you, number 3, have to ask yourself, well, how do I ask these people for help? Well, you could do the email way, which I hate. So I do advise that you get very personal here and be very low tech, high touch, because you are going out requesting help and a commitment from people who are going to use their mindset and their heart set for your benefit, just out of just being a good person that wants to help. And people love to help people. But I do recommend here that you request your help, preferably in a personal way, live if you can, doing it safely, of course, or on the phone, rather than it just being an antiseptic email exchange. And then number 4 is, in that personal connection, high touch, low tech, you're agreeing expectations with that other person of why do you need them? And what is going to be your way of working together? Are we going to meet every week for 30 minutes? Is it just once a month for an hour? Am I going to be sending you updates? There really does need to be some form of an agreement that feels like a contract of sorts, because you need to know that there's an agreement on the give and take, and the other person needs to know that they really are helping and that they're adding value. There is nothing more frustrating and potentially relationship damaging than starting a board of directors without agreeing on expectations. And then the 5th one is consult them as agreed, which means deliver upon the expectations. And then the 6th one is pay it forward. So on the survey that you took at the poll at the beginning, the upper tier of that arc was you are on other people's boards of directors. And so number 6 here is, as you are seeking your own personal board of directors, remember to make yourself available to be on other people's boards when they request the help as well. Pay it forward, come full circle. So that's a little dive into the 6th. We'll launch a poll right now to figure out, are there a certain 2 or 3 areas here where you want to dive a little bit more and maybe have a conversation on examples? We might have gotten dumped out of Zoom. Okay, I see somebody typing in the chat, examples, please. We're still here. Thank you. I tell you what, can somebody just signal to me from the preparation team, is the poll not working?
All I'm seeing is a Zoom window. This is Jamie.
Okay.
If Maureen's having issues.
Yeah, this is totally fine. Folks, would you mind going into the chat and telling me, are you more interested? Oh, perfect. We can see the slide again. You can just put in the chat, which give me a little bit of a signal of which ones you may be more interested in. Is it identifying the people, identifying your goals, setting ways of working? Item 4 is interesting. Okay, item 4 is around the ways of working, identifying the people, setting your goals. Let's see if a couple other chats come in. Goals again, identifying the people. Okay, I think I'm definitely seeing some consensus here around setting the goals, identifying the people, and agreeing the expectations. Yeah, okay, perfect. Thank you for that. That's very helpful. So I'm not online shopping. I'm going to look at my clock for a moment, just so that we can divide and conquer the topics, give them a little bit of equal attention while respecting our time commitment this evening or morning or afternoon, wherever you are. Okay, it's 5:40. Okay, so number 1, I'll start, obviously, let's go in order. Number 1, define your goals. Without goals, there is no personal board of directors. The only reason you would go and get one is if you had goals that you wanted to achieve that would benefit from external advisory. And so I think what I was hearing in your chat is how do you go about defining the goals? Because of this particular call, and it's such a diverse group of experiences and life stages, I want to give examples of both the life side and the career side. So on the life side of define your goals, you might be having questions about, you might have a goal that might be around financial goals that you have. They might be around health goals. They might be around making a decision about whether or not you want to go work for yourself or stay inside a larger company where you're working. They may be more relationship related. But if you decide that there is something that you want to go achieve in that health or finance or personal relationship, some people put spirituality on this list. It just depends on what you're personally pursuing on the life side. It's name 1, 2, or 3 goals that you want to achieve within a given time frame, and this is usually probably 3 months to a year, and identify the buddy, the outsider, or the diagnosers that can come on board to be sounding boards for you and to help keep you honest against the pursuit of those goals. On the career side, it might be that you are stuck and not making that next rung of promotion and you're a little mystified as to why. And so the personal board of directors that you're assembling may, in this instance, be a little bit more like a career coach around, are you managing confidence, executive presence, imposter syndrome, conflict management, delegation, and those types of more career job-oriented topics. You might assemble a board of directors around that. So for those of you who put define your goals and time frame, could you go back into the chat for a moment and just signal to me, was this what you meant when you said focus on number 1? Oh, and I'll answer Val Mason's question here in just a moment too. Anybody want to signal me in the chat about, okay, that was good, thank you. What I loved about the timing of this session with women of WPI is we're coming up on the end of a year, and which can be, a lot of people think of that as the mental milestone, right, of rounding out a year. You're probably, if you're working right now, you're probably at the time of year at your employer where you have had performance reviews. We tend to do that at the end of the year. You're thinking, how do you maybe want to show up differently in 2021? So it's a really great time to sit down and do this exercise around defining your goals. And I love to do them in a framework of you'll have health, you'll have finances, you'll have career, you'll have relationships, and think about, make sure you at least think about those categories and then pull out the ones that are a priority for you right now. Do you have more examples or any advice on how to define your career goals? For the career goals, this is a combination of making some really important decisions about, are you in the industry and the career place now that you wanted to be? Are you playing to your strengths? Are you getting direct feedback? Are you surrounded by people who will give you direct feedback? So the examples of defining your career goals has a lot to do with where you are now versus where you wish you were. And how much are you self-aware and how much are you getting really good direct feedback from the people in your universe? I wanted to go back. Val Mason had a question about, sorry, maybe it's a statement. Perhaps we do have some informal boards of directors that we might classify as mentors or coaches. Absolutely. You might have people on your personal board that act like mentors and act like coaches. The biggest difference here is a personal board of directors is a formal agreement. Sometimes at work we say, oh, yes, 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 I have a mentor. And whenever I get stuck, I go call her or I go ask his advice. And it's more of an informal thing of, can I meet you in the cafeteria for a coffee? It may happen once a year. It may happen just because you saw each other in the hallway. There's a little bit more formality to a personal board of directors because you have articulated the goals and you've given it a time frame. And that personal board of directors is there for that universe, that portfolio of goals. And then once you're done, that personal board of directors may be finished. You don't need them anymore. Maybe you refresh them, maybe some stay, maybe some go, maybe you start all over because you have new goals and need new people. So absolutely, the board can have mentoring, coaching dynamics, but I want you to think of the personal board of directors as being a much more thoughtful, deliberate construct than we often treat mentors and coaches. Okay. We also wanted to talk about number 2 and 4. So I'm going to go to number 2, and you can keep dumping stuff in the chat if it's helpful to steer me around your interests. So number 2 is identifying the best 3 to 5 people to help with your goal. And these could be people that you already know, right? It may be somebody at work that really, really helps you clarify your thinking and really has your career best interests in mind. It might be a friend who's helping you through a very difficult time. And these would be people that you already know that you're quite intimate with. And I want to challenge you to complement that by looking for people that you may not even know yet. And I'm going to read you a statistic. I looked up that WPI has 38,000 alums in 100 countries. So as you are thinking about your goals and your timeline to achieve and your best 3 to 5 people to put on your personal board of directors to achieve it, think about this universe of 38,000 alums in 100 countries. You don't know these people, but people want to help people and they're part of your community and your universe. And it may be that even in that alumni network, you've got somebody who maybe is in a field with experience that you're interested in moving into. Maybe they have some international experiences that you're interested in gaining and you want to tap into them for experience. So my biggest challenge around number 2 is really challenge yourself to think about selecting people for your board that really stretch you. This doesn't mean looking to the right and somebody that you've known for the last 7 years. Get really strategic about who really is going to challenge your thinking in the BOD way that we described. And then number 4, agreeing expectations. Why do you need the board and what is going to be your way of working with them? This is literally like writing a contract. I don't mean to over-engineer it and certainly be fit for purpose, but it literally is being very specific about the frequency with which you're going to meet, how you're going to do it, what is going to be the agenda, and in between those commitments, what are you going to take ownership of progressing? So you might be meeting, I'll use my resume and job hunt example that I mentioned earlier. You may be thinking that you want to be launching into a different career in 2021. You want to be thinking differently about your LinkedIn presence. You want to be thinking differently about the thought leadership that you write. You want to think differently about enhancing your resume. And maybe you're putting a BOD around that. Some of the expectations you may have with someone on your board is, I'm going to send you my resume. You're going to give me feedback on it. I'm going to incorporate your feedback. We're going to get together every 2 weeks and you're going to help me tell the verbal story and the storytelling that I'll start to use in my interviews. So they're giving you homework and assignments for you to progress. You're meeting with the frequency that you agreed to meet, and they know how to help you because you're being very specific about what your goal is and what your time frame is. And you're being very respectful of each other by honoring the time and the frequency commitment. That includes deciding when you're finished. Because once you bring on this board and you have a goal and a time frame to achieve it, it'll have a beginning, middle, and an end. And it's a thank you and thank them in the most appropriate, respectful way. And then they may not be on your board ever again because you've moved on to another goal that requires a different set of directors to help you. So that's a little bit more explanation around the agreeing expectations. It is formal, and it is so pleasing and respectful to the relationship when you do that, because both parties feel that they're adding value, and no one is wondering, did I help and is this working? And I think that that's really important, because you do want over the long term to be able to preserve these relationships, because networks are extremely important. Obviously, you know this. I'm telling you something that's so Captain Obvious right now. But the way you treat your board of directors is yet another moment to nurture and protect and value relationships. So the way you launch and the way you end, that personal board of directors commitment is equally important. Let me read a question. What might the initial request conversation look like in number 3? These requests in my mind could feel awkward, especially if the people do stretch you. I imagine it can be intimidating. Thank you for asking this question, Sarah. I love this question. I want to ground you in the concept that people love to help people. I want you to stop and think for a moment about the last time someone contacted you for help, or they wanted your advice on something, and how good did that feel? It felt great. I know it did. I know I can't see you nodding yes, but I know it felt great. We love it when people contact us for our advice. We love to be helpful to people. It's happened to you when people have reached out to you for help. So remember that feeling. When you're reaching out to these people asking for help, they're having that wonderful feeling, because everyone is flattered by that. And I would ask that you be very clear and specific on what is your goal, what is your time frame you're requesting of them, and how can they help? So you can't reach out to them and request for help until you've gotten really, really clear in your mind, number 1 and number 2. You've got to know what your goal is and about the time frame it's going to take. You've got to know about the skills and the type of person that you need, so that when you do the request for help, you've already done the strategic thinking. I know my goal, I know my time frame, I know the person. You are perfect for me. Could you take this on? And then they'll be flattered by the ask. And it might be that you do send out the initial flare as an email or a text. It might depend on your relationship. Maybe it's a LinkedIn message because you don't know the person yet. That initial flare might be electronic means, which I completely understand. That's realistic. But it's the follow-up that you later do where you really need to start having the personal touch, so that it's you're looking for a human interaction, not a chat bot. Okay. Any other questions coming in? I think that was the last one that I saw. Let's go to the next slide, please. So I mentioned Monday, the Monday nudge. This whole board of directors conversation is a tool for you to take control of the future that you want to have. And it's practical, and we can start doing things differently on Monday. So this is just a reality check, what I call my Monday nudge, which is the X is where we are today, and next Monday is just the question mark. And then my challenge to all of you is, what will you be doing Monday to start building your personal board of directors? What commitment do you want to make, and the investment in yourself to start building your personal board of directors? And this will be recorded, someone was asking. And the next slide, please. Just another summary of resources available to you after this call. The recording, as we just mentioned. And then on the right-hand side of this slide, I mentioned are the immediately available free resources. And I've highlighted the ones that are directly relevant to personal board of directors here, but there are multiple other topics across all kinds of careers. The podcast is interviews with all kinds of C-suite leaders and emerging talent, people right out of school. It's interview based across industry, across geography. I think I've got 4 or 5 from Sydney, Australia. I know we had somebody from Sydney. Several of these podcast guests are in Australia. So certainly take advantage. And again, congratulations for being here today and investing in yourself. And I think now we can go to a broader Q&A.
Thank you so much, Donna. If we can read some questions out if you want, or do you want to read the chat? Up to you.
Perfect. Let me read this one chat one. Thank you. The worksheet on the kinds of questions. On this slide that you're looking at right now, do you see under number 2 at the bottom right, there's one that's outlined in green, building a personal board of directors. Go read that blog. That will be a good starting place for how to think about the questions in the discussion. And then in the season 1 podcast episode straight above, on the top right of this slide, season 1, number 1, and season 1, number 24, we get very, very specific about how to think about setting up the board and how to use them. So I think that it's not technically a worksheet, but with those resources, I think it'll get at the questions that you're asking. The other one is, do you brainstorm together or work independently? Another really fabulous question. Most people work with their personal boards individually. So these 3 to 5 people do not come together and have a joint meeting with you. That's very unusual. However, it is extremely amazing if you can pull it off. And maybe that's becoming even easier in the era of COVID and us getting much more comfortable in this type of environment. The expectation is that you work with them individually because that's just much more realistic depending on people's schedules and their jobs and just all the life complexities. But I do think our comfort level working like this is making it so much easier to be together. And if you could have some strategy sessions like that, where you are the center of the strategy session, more power to you. And I want to hear about it because I do believe that that is what gold standard titanium level would look like. Let's see if we get anything else here. Allison, did others come through other means, or how do you want to?
Oh, sorry. Of course, my dog starts barking.
Yes.
I haven't seen any others
Okay.
coming in. Please keep your questions coming. Something that came to my mind, Donna, while you were just talking around kind of having everyone, kind of that gold standard of bringing everyone together. And that's a little outside the topic of this particular conversation, but in this space of, us being women in professional women and us being women in the world, that just strikes me, and it just strikes me as like how uncomfortable and how do you get comfortable being kind of that center of attention? I think a lot of us are the folks that are not necessarily right in the center of the screen and may not be ready. How do you kind of prepare? I think harking back to another question that was asked, like maybe it's awkward to reach out to these people, but how do you kind of get comfortable in that space?
Yeah. First, would we be able to go off of the sharing? I think that might make me bigger and easier to see if we stop sharing the screen, the slides. Is that better for anybody? Does that help at all? Am I still a tiny little tile, Allison?
Nope. Everyone's saying that you're bigger.
Okay.
So I'm in a different view with you, but everyone's saying that you're now front and center.
Okay. All righty. All right. Well, hopefully my eyebrows are in check here now that I'm big. I definitely understand the question. If you are the kind of person that is a real common expression for this feeling is imposter syndrome. When you feel like I can't ask to be the center of attention, or why would somebody want to be meeting with me on this? I'm not experienced enough. If you find those types of, I call that software in the brain. If you find those types of narratives running in your mind, there's 2 tricks that I like to use that you might find helpful. Let me try them out for size. One of them is to ask yourself, what evidence do I have that this negative thought in my mind is even true? So what evidence? So if you're feeling negative or self-doubt about something, like, oh, that person would never want to talk to me, or I really don't have enough experience for that person to want to spend time with me, or I'm too junior, or they're too busy. Stop and ask yourself, what evidence do I have that this is true? And then the next question to ask yourself is, what's the worst that can happen? And especially in the personal board of directors land, the worst that can happen is one of two things. They either don't respond, either they got busy or you went in their junk mail and they didn't even see the note, right? That's one worst thing that can happen, is they don't respond. The second worst thing that can happen is that they say no. But actually, you want them to say no if no is the answer. You want them to respectfully say no if they cannot live up to the commitment that you need for your personal board goals. So no, while it might sound like, oh, that's the worst thing that can happen is they say no, that's actually a good thing if they say no, because it means they know that they can't meet your expectation, or they think they're not the right person for your need. And in that example, no is a beautiful answer. So those are two things to ask yourself. What evidence do I have that this negative feeling is true? And the second one is, what's the worst that can happen? And then the other trick that I like to use is, and I call them trick, they're really mindsets, right? The other mindset that I like to use is, think about the problem that you're trying to solve. And if you think about the problem that you're trying to solve, it helps you get a little bit more objective about the situation. So it isn't you in the center of the universe and all the lights are on you. It's no, I'm externally thinking about a problem I need to solve. Let me give you an example. If you want to be assembling a board of directors around building executive presence or more effective communication, because you've gotten feedback that that's important for your next promotion, you could think about you under the spotlight of, oh my gosh, I've got to go get better at communication. Or you could be thinking about, my team has been doing a lot of really great work. And if that work is not communicated in a powerful, influential way, then the business is not benefiting from the team's work as it should. Therefore, I need to learn how to be the best ambassador of all that amazing work that the team has done by improving the way that their information gets presented, and I'm a vessel for presenting it. So it's an example of how, rather than I've got to get better at presenting, it's my team's work needs the proper attention. So let me go get better at raising the proper attention to it. Does that make sense? How did I do, Allison?
Excellent.
Okay.
No, I think that's
Okay.
excellent. Thank you. And we did get a few more questions. So it was a good bridge.
Okay.
So a couple of questions are related about, do you keep the board of directors until you reach that goal, or do you end your time based on the timing agreed to? And related, you know, I'm going to call you out, Judy. Just say, Judy says, Judy Nitsch, who's one of our trustees, a wonderful alum, who's been an excellent mentor to so many women. And she says she's been a mentor and sponsor and advisor for many women engineers for many, many years. Thought of being asked to be part of a board of directors sounds like a more long-term and permanent commitment than the examples you shared. And she's curious about the timeline you'd expect. So those were related. And just a little add on to the point you were saying earlier about sometimes people don't respond. A couple of people have chimed in and said that, people are busy. So if you don't hear back, it might just be that they somehow missed an email, and a lot of people appreciate that second nudge. So those are the questions we've got.
I love the one about if you don't hear back, keep trying. 100%. Absolutely 100%. And it is so common these days that they don't respond because you did go into their junk mail. Especially if you start emailing people that don't know you and you're using different company email addresses and they have all these kind of security protections. If you're using a work email, it is extremely common for you to end up in a junk mailbox. So absolutely keep trying, and don't assume. So for example, one way your brain can work against you is to say, well, I sent them an email and they never responded. They're just not interested in helping me. What evidence do you have that that is true? What evidence do you have that that is true? Probably none. It's just you sent one email, they didn't respond. They could have been busy. You could have been in their junk mail. They could have been on vacation. And by the time they got back, you were at the bottom of 1,000 emails. So you continue, don't get defeated. It's what evidence do you have that this is true if you're not getting what you want or you're starting to lose your confidence? I completely love this this email about how Judy says it. If they don't say quit bugging me, another nudge is not a bad thing. 1,000%. And this is also where using your network will help. So if you know that there is someone in this maybe 38,000 of WPI alums with experience in an area that can help you, but you don't know them, there could be people inside your network, 6 degrees of separation, that can help do a warm handshake, a warm introduction for you to help you get to those people if you're having trouble getting at the top of their awareness, or if you're having trouble getting a response. There was another question though, Allison, I'm forgetting that one.
Yeah,
Oh, the longer
a couple
term.
about timelines.
Yeah. For me, because it takes time and effort to set this board of directors concept up and get it running. Your goal and your time frame is best if it's at least about a 6-month effort to really make the rigor and the discipline of putting a board of directors in place worth it. So I would make it more of a big, hairy kind of a goal that requires a diversity of thought, a diversity of perspectives, and may not get accomplished in just 6 or 8 weeks. I think 6 months is about a sweet spot, both to progress something complicated, and it's a chance to check in with the personal board of directors to say, are we kind of done, or should we continue? And because you already have an agreement in place, it'll be very easy for you to have a respectful conversation of should we continue or are we done?
Great, thank you. I was just going to type in the chat. Does anyone else have more questions? Please keep them coming. I think we've caught all the questions. So if you've asked a question and we haven't answered it, you can ask us again.
Yeah, please. Yeah, I might not have scrolled. Please. Might have lost something scrolling down. Yeah.
So we do have a bit more time, folks, if you want to ask more questions. We'll give people a few more minutes to think about questions. Donna, okay, couple more, one more question, okay. I guess. Are there any pitfalls that we should be aware of when setting up our board of directors?
Yeah, the main one is relationship preservation. You are asking someone to invest in you fully, and it's a commitment, and it needs to be honored and respected and not fall on the side of taking advantage of someone, just as you would with any relationship that you want to extend over a longer period of time. A pitfall is that you treat it like a transaction, and you're not appreciative and fully respectful of the time commitment and the investment in each other. So just as you would with any relationship that you're trying to respect and preserve, the way you are grateful and you thank people, if you agree if you agree to have a 1-hour meeting on a Friday and you cancel at the last minute for no real reason other than you weren't organized, that's disrespectful. So the main pitfall from the whole process is, and that's why I think it's so important to set agreements up front, is to really treat this with a little bit more formality, because you don't want this work together to have damaged a relationship because someone felt they were taken advantage of or someone felt they didn't deliver. Those are the main pitfalls. And then the main way to overcome it is with that element on the checklist, which is to have the joint agreement discussion and follow through on your agreements.
That's
great.
This
is a good one. Mark has an interesting one here. Is it common to have multiple boards for multiple goals, or do you group goals together? I love this one. And I'm going to have to give you the consultant answer, which is it depends. If you Depending on the people that you bring onto your board, you might find that they can go across different goals that you have. But if you have some that are very, very unique, very specific, and almost in a, they can almost be put in a little capsule on their own, and they're very specialized, you might actually have to have a separate board for that, or have a bigger board, because you're going to be interfacing with these people mostly individually anyway. And so you might find that there's some goal that you have that is real specialty and really niche. And so maybe you expand the board a little bit more to maybe 6 people to get that niche experience there. Rather than managing multiple boards, you might just make the one that you have a little bit bigger, depending on how niche your goals are.
Great, thanks. Okay, folks, keep asking those questions. Oh, we got a few. Excellent, thank you. We're interested in exploring another industry. Is it appropriate to ask the personal board of directors to keep discussions confidential?
Always, 100%. That is part of the agreement that you have with them. So that, and I should have mentioned this earlier. Thank you, Caitlin, for mentioning it. In that list of things to do when you're agreeing and setting expectations with your board and you, part of it is, what is the agreement that we have with each other on confidentiality? Sometimes you might want a member of your board to help open doors for you and introduce you to all kinds of people, to use their network on your behalf. And other times what you really need is somebody with extreme discretion that you feel you can speak to confidentially all the time. So it'll depend on what the goal is, but that is another reason that that initial expectation setting is so important. So everyone knows what the boundaries are, and confidentiality or not is a real critical topic. So thank you for raising it. I should have mentioned that one earlier.
And a couple other ones. I don't know if this is actually a question, Courtney, but I think we're all in this space of trying to balance work and family. And I think it's pretty, a lot of the examples, when you talked about retiring as opposed to retiring.
Yeah.
But thinking about it in the context of personal board of directors, or maybe helping with that work-life balance goal. And then thinking about how to make a goal like that a little more specific, and should it be working moms? Should it be more diverse? And then if you don't mind me grouping all of them with you at once, Mark is also wondering, that, we said that the board of members rarely meet as a group, and would the members you select know each other?
Okay, I'm going to take Mark's because it's a quicker answer, and then we'll dive into Courtney, because that's a rich one. It's a little more complicated. So Mark, about board of directors, you mentioned that they rarely meet. Do they necessarily know each other? Depending on how big your network is, they may or may not have known each other. But when I go out to ask someone to be on my board, they often have no idea who the other ones are, and they'll never ever meet or talk to each other. Obviously, if you went down the titanium level path of wanting your board to get together for structured meetings, they'll start to meet each other. But as you start to identify who is best for your need, one of the filters of whether or not they know each other is not an issue. I would call it not relevant. So let me go to Courtney's, kind of a compound question here. Let me make sure I understood it properly. You have a goal of managing work and family. Is that too broad of a goal? Would you need to make it more specific in order to rally a board of directors around it? Is that a fair summary, Courtney? Correct. Okay, thank you. I would encourage you to identify what is a work goal. What are your top 1 or 2? What are your top 1 or 2 or 3 family goals? And so rather than just saying my goal is to balance work and life, it's no, what specifically within a day of your life do you want to be achieving? For example, is it that I want a gun for this particular promotion within the next 24 months, and I want my family sitting at the dinner table at least 3 nights a week, all around the table having dinner together? So that's an example of balancing work and life, but it's extremely specific. So I would encourage you to try to get more specific about, If you envision for yourself a life where your work and your personal were better balanced, what would it look like? What would it feel like? Where would I be? What would we be doing? And try to get more specific, and then let that inform how you bring people in. Some of them may be working moms, some of them won't. It's going to depend on what the specific goal is. Does that make sense, Courtney, if you're still in the chat?
While we wait to hear from
Okay.
Courtney, we're wondering if the goals for those in employment are also those who want to start a business. Jane is a member of the class of 85 and looking to retire.
Retire, yes. Yes, actually, if you are thinking about starting a business, how wonderful and applicable it is to think about a personal board of directors, because remember what I said before, every company has one. If you're looking to start your own business, you're also becoming a company. And think about the way you assemble a board of directors is maybe in this environment, if it's around starting up a new business, have some really honest conversations with yourself about where your Achilles heels are, and think about building your board as a way to shore up your weaknesses. So I don't know how old you are. If you're looking to retire, maybe you are not the most savvy social media person because you didn't grow up with a smartphone in your crib. That would be an example of thinking about somebody on your personal board that might be helping you think differently about marketing your business, having a social media presence. What will be your personal branding? How will you be engaging in social media in a way that's consistent with your core values? That might be an example of how to think about a personal board when you're also trying to think about being self-employed. I have multiple interviews in my podcast series with entrepreneurs. Off the top of my head, maybe 8 or 10. There's about 75 published right now. I'll have about 100 by the end of the year. About 10 of them are with entrepreneurs. And so I would encourage you to go out and take advantage of that resource. It might be helpful for you.
Yeah, just put out another call for more questions, but question about how often should you appreciate your board by sending a card or appreciation gift?
Yeah, that's a fun question. Certainly do what feels natural. Everybody's a little different. Do what feels natural. Absolutely a thank you when they have agreed to sign up and you're getting started. It's kind of like a thank you for your business, right when you get started. And then I would think about a way to show appreciation once you have achieved a milestone in your journey. It may be, if one of your things was work-life balance, it may be that you just had the most restful weekend you've ever had, and you just want to send a note out to the board and say, look, I'm not going to go into details, but you have no idea what a beautiful weekend my family and I just had. Thank you for your support. And it's just an email or a text or a photograph, right? But then once you're ending that commitment, maybe it's the 6 months and it truly, truly is ending. Maybe that's a handwritten note. Again, low tech, high touch. For me, I have some people that like to buy their board bottles of wine, and they spend a lot of money on like flowers and things like that. Since I could walk, have been a collector of 4-leaf clovers, and my husband calls it grazing. Whenever I'm outside and I see a field of clovers, I'm looking for clovers. It's a silly thing I've always done since I was a child. So I send handwritten thank you notes with a 4-leaf clover inside. It's my little signature thing. But do what you do, right? Do what is authentic to you, but certainly recognize the moments.
I think this is an interesting one. How
Okay.
close should you be with members of your board? For example, if you work with an individual and they have a family and you're close with that board member, do you think it's best to separate your relationship with the person and their family?
Yeah. So in board of directors, you remember BOD was buddies, outsiders, and diagnosers. Buddies is the place for the people that are closer to you, if it's an appropriate one to have. The O is outsider on purpose, right? That they will not be close to you. And you won't have to have the worry of well, what if this gets out? Or what if confidentiality is broken? Or can I really speak freely? Are there politics involved? So there's a reason that the 3 are different types. And again, since the personal board is meant to be more on the formal side, probably only the buddy role is the one that you would feel is the person you're close to. The other ones still have a more of a, the outsider and the diagnoser tend to be relationships that are more, they're less personal, they're less intimate, if that makes sense. Jermo, did I answer your question?
And do we have any other questions? We still have a few more minutes. Going once. Oh, how many times have you had a board of directors, and do you have any personal stories to share?
Yeah. So about in 2005, I know exactly when it happened. In 2005, I got formally introduced to the concept of personal boards of directors. I had had mentors forever. I had been part of leadership development programs where you get assigned mentors. I had informal mentors where it was just somebody that really spoke to me and I really had a connection with. It was more informal than I would call at times. But not until 2005 did I do a formal personal board of directors, and I do it once a year. And I do it for about 6 months. And I choose to do it around my my new goal setting for the calendar year. I don't do New Year's resolutions, but I do have a strategic plan. I do a strategic plan every year. Some people do vision boarding. Some of you might out there do vision boards. It's kind of a similar concept. But I do that every year, usually around the January timeframe. And I have a board of directors formally around that to get me through about June. And that's kind of what I need to create a new practice and a rhythm. And after that, I really don't think I need it anymore because I've already decided, am I going to stick to it or am I not? And then I kind of close it out around the summertime and then work on my own for the rest of the year. I do have one person that I recycle pretty often. It's a man that I had worked with in my career that was just one of the most influential people I have ever not just worked with but lived around. There's just something about the way he understands me that I choose to go back to him on multiple topics. I don't have him in a real narrow lane. But all the other people that I have had on my board would be different, and I kind of cycle through them depending on what the year, my year strategic plan holds.
That's great. Thank you. We have a couple people saying how much they love the retire mindset.
Yes. Yes. Do more retiring.
Give people a couple more minutes if you have any questions, because we're going to wrap up shortly.
Okay.
But if you have any last second questions, get them in there. Going once, going twice. Okay, well, thank you so much, Donna, for what a great program.
Thank you for having me.
Well, we got one last question, Joyce.
Okay.
Donna, can you share the help you received from a younger employee?
Oh my gosh, Joyce, thank you. See, this is another thing that I should have mentioned.
Great one. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. This is another, thank you for prompting me.
Sure.
Oh my God, how could I have forgotten this? So there's a variety of ages on this phone call. And what I should have said like 45 minutes ago, a board of directors are people that you choose to help you meet a goal, right? And sometimes your ability to meet that goal requires you to look differently across generations. So in 2019, for example, this was the year before I retired from Accenture, I owned a group of talent that was 70% millennial. And that's an enormous number of people that are of a generation that I am not, that have different goals and aspirations. You learn differently. And so I had a personal board of directors in 2019 that had 2 millennials on it. And my goal and our expectation was that I met with them weekly for the first about 3 months we were together as a board. I met with them weekly to check in with them on how was I doing being a supervisor to millennial talent. Am I communicating in a way that they want to be communicated with? Am I being transparent with information the way they want to be transparent? Are my Sunday night emails bothering them because they think they have to respond on Sunday night? Am I asking enough? How was your weekend? Because I was typically a Monday morning. I never asked anybody about their weekend. And so I deliberately brought on one person was 24 and right out of undergrad, and the other person was 30-ish. And they were my personal board of directors for a very specific goal that I had, which was to be a more relevant supervisor, because the generational gap between me and 70% of my team was so vast. So yes, I receive this board of directors concept knows no generational boundaries. It's all driven by the goal that you have set for yourself and who is best to be on the board for you to achieve the goal. Thank you, Joyce, for reminding me.
And thank you. Thanks so much, Donna. This was an excellent program. I think I can speak for everyone when I say how inspiring and helpful this was.
Wonderful.
And I know we all have some work to do starting Monday. So you have a few days to get ready. We'd also like to say a special thank you to the Women of WPI Committee and our friends in the Office of Alumni Relations who assisted us in putting this whole program together. A particularly special thank you to Maureen Maynard in the Office of Alumni Relations. We wouldn't be here without her guidance and support. Jamie is going to share a few links in the chat before you run away. Share a few links in the chat to help you stay in touch with us. And we hope you enjoyed the program, and we look forward to seeing you at the fireside chat. I think we're seeing a couple questions coming in, so people are going to be listening to your podcast and the recording. I don't know, Caitlin, if we'll be emailing the recording to attendees, but certainly you can reach out to us, and we will put some resources in the link and how to connect in the chat of how to connect with us. And thank you so much for joining us. Have a nice evening, day, morning, whatever time it might be where you are. And thanks again.